All right, so let's dive into this world that
Okay.
blends spirituality, politics, and some pretty intriguing controversies.
How's
So
it?
we're taking a deep dive
Yeah.
into the Science of Identity Foundation, often called SIF,
Right.
and its connection to a familiar name in politics,
Okay.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yes.
You've sent over this fascinating collection of letters, news articles,
Uh-huh.
social media posts, and
Hmm.
it looks like we've got a lot to unpack.
It seems like we do.
So,
What's striking right away is the sheer depth of Gabbard's connection to SIF.
okay,
She was raised within this organization,
okay,
her father being a close associate of its founder, Chris Butler,
right.
also known as Jagad Guru Siddheswarupananda Paramahamsa.
Okay, so we're not talking about just a passing familiarity here.
Yeah.
This is deep-rooted, foundational stuff.
Yes.
But the name Jagadguru,
Right.
that sounds pretty significant. What's the context there?
In traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the lineage SIF claims to follow. Okay.
Jagadguru is a title of immense spiritual authority,
Right.
reserved for masters who are recognized by a council of their peers. However, sources suggest that Butler just assumed this title
Oh, wow.
without any sort of formal recognition from the
Right.
broader Gaudiya community.
So right off the bat, we're already seeing a potential deviation from
Yeah.
established tradition.
It seems so.
You mentioned SEF claims to follow Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
Right.
What is that exactly?
Well, Gaudiya Vaishnavism is a branch of Hinduism centered on the worship of Krishna.
Mhm.
It emphasizes devotion, chanting, and a guru-disciple relationship.
Okay.
But while Sif uses the language and the imagery of Gaudiya Vaishnavism,
Uh-huh.
the sources you've shared point to some pretty significant differences.
Like what, for instance?
Well, one striking difference is the role of the guru.
Okay.
In traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavism,
Mm-hmm.
while the guru is revered, there's a recognition that other genuine gurus exist.
But within SEF, sources suggest that Butler is positioned as the sole source of spiritual authority.
Okay.
We even have a letter here from a former SIF follower, Mahapavadas, expressing confusion about why Butler discourages interaction with other respected Gaudiya Vaishnava gurus.
It's almost like he's creating this closed system where his word is absolute.
It seems that way.
And that raises the question,
Yeah.
how does this impact the followers' understanding of the world outside Seth?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
We have some comments from individuals claiming to be former SIF members,
Um,
describing SIF as hermetic,
Hermetic.
both locally and internationally.
Wow.
They suggest there's a deliberate isolation from the outside world,
Okay.
even other SIF branches.
So we're not just talking about theological differences here.
No.
This isolation could potentially shape their entire worldview.
Potentially, yes.
But let's bring Tulsi Gabbard back into the picture.
Okay.
Knowing her upbringing within this potentially isolated environment, how has that influenced her political career?
Oh,
Particularly her involvement with groups like the Independence for Godly Government or IGG.
it's difficult to establish a direct, causal link.
Sure.
However, some political analysts, looking at the sources you've provided, suggest that Gabbard's political stances, especially her social conservatism,
Right.
might be rooted in SIF's worldview,
Okay.
which, as we've discussed, could be shaped by their isolation and Butler's teachings.
And that makes the connection to IGG, a group advocating for religious influence in government, even more fascinating.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
While Gabbard hasn't explicitly stated a direct connection between her political affiliations
Right.
and SIF beliefs,
Sure.
the potential overlap is something commentators have highlighted,
Okay.
particularly concerning issues like LGBTQ plus rights.
Right.
Some of Butler's past statements on homosexuality have drawn criticism,
Uh-huh.
and Gabbard, while distancing herself from those specific remarks, has maintained socially conservative views on similar topics.
So it's a nuanced situation.
Very much so.
She's navigating the public sphere
Yeah.
while carrying this background that might inform her political positions,
Yeah,
even if indirectly.
precisely.
And it gets even more complex when we factor in the allegations of Sif's financial involvement in her campaigns.
It does.
While these allegations haven't been definitively proven,
Right.
some sources point to potential irregularities that warrant further investigation.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big claim.
Mhm.
What kind of irregularities are we talking about?
Some former SIF members claim they were encouraged to donate to Gabbard's campaigns,
Okay.
sometimes exceeding legal limits,
Wow.
and even to volunteer for her campaigns,
Okay.
while potentially using SIF resources.
Wow. If true, that would be a significant blurring of lines between a religious organization,
Right.
and political activity.
It certainly raises ethical and legal questions.
Yeah.
However, it's important to emphasize that these are allegations.
Right, of course.
And Gabbard has denied any wrongdoing.
Right, we want to be clear about that.
Yes.
But it does add another layer of complexity to this already intricate relationship between Gabbard, Sif, and her political activities.
Indeed.
And speaking of complexity, we haven't even touched upon the enigmatic Butler Das,
Great.
also known as Johnny Midget,
Yes.
and his controversial involvement with the multi-level marketing company,
Yes.
QNet.
That's right.
He seems to be a key figure in this whole story.
He does.
Before we jump into that rabbit hole,
I'm
let's
getting-
take a step back and explore some of the specific ways.
Yeah.
Sif's practices deviate from traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
Okay.
We've talked about the guru issue.
Right.
What else stands out?
Well, one notable difference is the way Sif conducts, or rather doesn't conduct, traditional initiation ceremonies.
Okay.
In Gaudiya Vaishnavism, ceremonies like Harinama and Diksha are crucial rites of passage,
Okay.
signifying a deep commitment to the path.
For those of us who aren't familiar, could you quickly break down what those ceremonies entail?
Of course.
Okay.
So Harinama refers to the chanting of Krishna's names,
Mm-hmm.
a central practice in Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
Right.
And Diksha is a formal initiation ceremony
Okay.
where a disciple receives a mantra from their guru, signifying a deeper spiritual connection.
So how does Sif handle these ceremonies differently?
The sources you've provided suggest that Sif either omits these ceremonies altogether or significantly alters them.
Wow.
For example, some former members claim that Butler incorporates his own name into the traditional Harinama chants,
Oh, wow.
a practice unheard of in traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
So it's like they're taking the framework of Gaudiya Vaishnavism,
Yeah.
but modifying it to suit their own needs, potentially to further elevate Butler's position.
So that's one interpretation.
And these modifications have led to friction between Sif and more established Gaudiya groups.
Yes, they have. In fact, in that letter we mentioned earlier from Mahabhavadas,
Okay.
he explicitly states that Sif teachings diverge from those of Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, a prominent Gaudiya organization.
So even within the relatively small world of Gaudiya Vaishnavism,
Yeah.
Sif seems to be carving out its own unique and potentially controversial space.
It seems so.
Yeah.
Yes. And this sense of separateness is further highlighted by another key difference, Butler's personal life.
Okay.
He's married to his disciple Wailana, which goes against the traditional Gaudiya principle of sannyasa,
Okay.
a vow of renunciation typically taken by spiritual teachers.
So that's a pretty significant departure from tradition.
It is.
It seems like Butler is operating under his own set of rules, even when they contradict the very principles that he claims to uphold.
It seems that way.
And this brings us to the intriguing figure of Butler Das,
Okay.
also known as Johnny Midget.
Yes.
He plays a crucial role in the Sif network, but is also entangled in some rather questionable activities.
That's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
So Midget,
Yeah.
a longtime follower of Butler, has held various leadership positions within Sif.
Right.
However, sources also link him to QNet,
Right.
a multi-level marketing company
Right.
that has faced accusations of operating as a pyramid scheme.
Hold on, a pyramid scheme.
Yes.
That's a far cry from the spiritual enlightenment Sif supposedly promotes.
It is.
Can you explain how these multi-level marketing companies work
Sure.
and where the potential for exploitation lies?
In multi-level marketing,
Okay.
or MLM, individuals earn commissions not only from their own sales,
Right.
but also from recruiting others into the network.
Okay.
This structure,
Yeah.
while not inherently illegal,
Right.
can easily devolve into a pyramid scheme.
What's the key difference between legitimate MLM
Okay.
and a pyramid scheme?
So in legitimate MLM, the focus is on selling genuine products or services. Your income is primarily driven by sales.
Got it.
However, with pyramid schemes, the emphasis shifts to recruitment. Your earnings depend more on signing up new members
Right.
than on selling anything of real value.
So eventually you run out of people to recruit
Right.
and the whole thing collapses,
It's-
leaving those at the bottom with losses.
The bottom of the pyramid often loses their investment,
Right.
while those at the top who got in early reap the profits.
Now, QNet has vehemently denied operating as a pyramid scheme,
They have.
claiming they offer high-quality products.
Right.
But haven't there been investigations into their practices?
Absolutely.
Right.
QNet has faced legal challenges and scrutiny in multiple countries, with allegations of deceptive recruitment tactics
Oh, yeah.
and financial exploitation.
And this is where Midget's involvement becomes particularly concerning.
It is.
Sources suggest he played a role in recruiting SIF members into QNet.
That's right.
So you have this spiritual leader urging his followers to join a business venture that's under investigation for potentially unethical practices.
Right.
Were SIF members pressured to join QNet?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Were they made aware of the risks involved?
Right. That's a crucial question.
It is.
While we can't definitively answer that without firsthand accounts from those involved,
Right.
it certainly raises concerns about the potential for exploitation.
It does.
Some former SIF members claim they felt obligated to participate in QNet
Okay.
due to Midget's position within the organization and his close ties to Butler.
Right.
This adds a whole new dimension to our understanding of SIF.
Yes, it does.
It's not just about spiritual teachings anymore.
Right.
There are real-world consequences with potential financial and emotional repercussions for those who join QNet.
Exactly.
It underscores the importance of critical thinking,
It does.
particularly when dealing with groups that claim to hold a monopoly on truth.
Yeah.
We need to scrutinize the actions of leaders, even those we might admire or trust,
Yes.
and question whether their actions aligned with their professed values.
I agree.
It's a reminder that blind faith can be dangerous,
It can.
especially when mixed with finances and potential exploitation.
Yes.
But let's shift our focus back to the followers.
Okay.
What's it actually like to be a member of SIF?
Oh, right.
We've talked about isolation and potential financial irregularities,
Right.
but what about the everyday lived experiences of those within the group?
We have a collection of first-hand accounts from former members,
Okay.
providing valuable insights into life within SIF. Some describe a deep sense of belonging and purpose, finding solace in Butler's teachings, and the structured environment of the group.
So it's not all negative.
No.
Some individuals find genuine fulfillment within SIF.
Absolutely.
Okay.
For some, SIF offered a sense of community and spiritual direction that they found meaningful.
Okay.
However, there are also accounts of disillusionment, manipulation, and psychological harm.
Can you elaborate on those negative experiences?
Yes.
What kind of harm are we talking about?
One former member who attended the SIF boarding school in the Philippines shared a particularly disturbing experience.
Okay.
They described being taught to revere Butler and his wife as divine messengers,
Right.
repeatedly exposed to Butler's lectures,
Okay.
containing sexually explicit content and homophobic rhetoric.
That's deeply troubling,
It is.
especially considering the young age of those attending the boarding school.
Yes.
It raises concerns about indoctrination and the potential for lasting psychological impact.
Precisely.
Yeah.
This particular individual spoke about the long and difficult process of rebuilding their identity and worldview
Wow.
after leaving SIF.
Mm-hmm.
They described feeling lost and disoriented,
Right.
struggling to unlearn years of ingrained beliefs and behaviors.
It sounds almost like deprogramming yourself from a cult-like environment.
That's a term some former members have used to
Yeah.
describe their experience within SIF. They point to the isolation,
Right.
the unquestioning devotion to Butler, and the potential for exploitation as characteristics that align with cult-like dynamics.
So it's a complex picture.
It is.
We have individuals who found genuine solace and meaning within SIF,
Right.
and others who experienced profound
Yeah.
harm.
Yes.
It highlights the nuanced and often contradictory nature of groups like SIF.
It does.
It also underscores the importance of listening to a variety of perspectives,
It does.
particularly those who have left the group.
Yes.
Their stories can provide valuable insights into the inner workings of the organization and the potential risks involved.
Right.
It's crucial to remember that there's no single narrative that captures the entirety of the SIF experience. It's a multifaceted story with both positive and negative aspects.
Right.
And as we continue our deep dive, we need to hold both of those realities in mind.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We still have the intricate details of Midget's involvement with QAnet to unravel.
Good.
How does this controversial business venture connect back to SIF's financial operations? And what does it reveal about the group's priorities and ethical boundaries?
Let's delve deeper into the QNet connection and see what light it sheds on this already complex and fascinating story. All right, so let's try to untangle this QNet web a little bit
Okay.
and see how it connects back to SIF.
Yeah.
we've established that it's a multi-level marketing company
Right.
with a questionable reputation,
Yeah.
and that Butler, also known as Johnny Midget, a prominent figure within SIF,
Right.
was involved in recruiting SIF members
Yeah.
into this venture.
That's right.
So the sources you've provided paint a rather murky picture
They do.
of Midget's role.
Yeah.
Some former SIF members allege he acted as like a financial conduit,
Okay.
funneling funds from various SIF branches worldwide
Right.
back to Butler in Hawaii.
That's right.
So we're potentially talking about large sums of money flowing through this network, with Midget at the center of it all. But how does QNet, this supposedly legitimate business, fit into this financial flow?
Well, that's where things get even more complicated. Some speculate that QNet was used to launder money for SIF.
Money laundering.
Yes.
Through a multi-level marketing company.
It's a possibility.
That's a bold claim.
It is.
Is there any evidence to support this?
It's important to note that these are allegations. And concrete proof is hard to come by.
Of course.
However, the financial structures of both QNet and SIF, particularly their lack of transparency, have raised red flags for investigators.
You mentioned lack of transparency.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
Sure.
What specifically makes these organizations financially opaque?
So both SIF and QNet have complex organizational structures that obscure the flow of money. SIF operates through a network of seemingly independent centers and businesses, making it difficult to trace financial transactions.
And
QNet, with its multi-tiered commission system and international reach, also presents challenges for investigators trying to track the movement of funds.
So it's not as simple as just following a paper trail.
Right.
This deliberate obfuscation makes it difficult to determine where the money is coming from and where it's going. But let's bring this back to the individual SIF members.
Okay.
What would motivate them to participate in a scheme like this?
Well, it's crucial to remember the deep-seated devotion many SIF members have for Butler. They believe him to be their spiritual guide, their path to enlightenment. Combine that with the isolated environment we discussed earlier, where critical thinking is potentially discouraged. And it's not difficult to see how some might be persuaded to invest in QNet, believing they're supporting a higher cause.
So it's a potent mix of faith, trust,
Mm-hmm.
and potential manipulation.
Right.
But we don't want to lose sight of the fact that QNet has allegedly harmed many individuals outside of SIF as well.
Yes.
This isn't just an internal SIF issue.
Exactly.
QNet's recruitment practices have been accused of targeting vulnerable individuals, promising them financial freedom while often leading them into debt and despair.
Right.
The potential for exploitation in this kind of system is immense.
It is.
Regardless of one's religious affiliation.
Absolutely.
It's a stark reminder that critical thinking and due diligence are crucial, especially when we're dealing with organizations that make grand promises, whether those promises are spiritual or financial in nature.
Yes.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Science of Identity Foundation, what key takeaways should our listeners keep in mind?
I think the most important takeaway is the complexity of this organization.
Okay.
We've seen how SIF blends elements of traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavism with unique and often controversial practices. We've explored the potential impact of their isolationist tendencies on members' worldviews and the troubling allegations of financial impropriety and exploitation.
It's clear that SIF is not easily categorized.
It's not.
It's not simply a benign spiritual group, nor is it a clear-cut case of a harmful cult.
Right.
The reality, as we've seen, is much more nuanced.
It is.
And that's why it's so crucial to approach information about groups like SIF with a discerning mind.
Yes.
Don't simply accept narratives at face value, whether they come from the organization itself or from its critics.
Exactly.
Look beyond the surface. Ask questions. Consider multiple perspectives. And ultimately form your own conclusions based on a careful evaluation of the evidence.
Agreed.
It's a process that requires effort and critical thinking.
It does.
But it's essential for navigating a world where information, misinformation, and manipulation are constantly vying for our attention. Well said.
Thank you.
And with that,
yeah,
we've reached the end of our deep dive into the Science of Identity Foundation.
Okay.
It's been a fascinating journey,
It has.
exploring a world where spirituality, politics, and questionable business practices intersect.
Yeah.
Hopefully our listeners found this exploration informative and thought-provoking.
I hope so.
And perhaps it'll serve as a reminder to always approach information with a critical eye.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to groups that claim to hold the answers to life's big questions.
Right.
Until next time,
Mm-hmm.
keep diving deep.
All right.